Well, summertime's supposed to be relaxing for college athletics. Maybe unplug, get away from the office. But of course, with the NCAA versus House settlement, this guy's been pretty busy this summer with not just athletic leadership, but campus leadership. And he's here to break it all down. Tim Leonard, athletic director for SIU. Is that about right, Tim? I know this has been something that's been coming for a while, and
Yeah.
you've had some preparation for it, but now it's starting to come to fruition. It's all right. Now it's time to really get that game plan to act it into fruition.
Yeah, I'd say it was probably worse this spring, just with the anticipation of it, trying to figure it out, and it just seemed like the news you would get would change. Every time you got news, you're like, okay, well, then I guess we're not going to do it that way, or we're going to have to do it this way. And, none of us really know if we've got the right plan or not until we go through this. But I feel good about ours. We're having to make some last-minute adjustments now after the FAQ came out over the weekend from the NCAA, told us some things, so we'll have to make some adjustments. But overall, I think we've got a good plan and we're ready to go.
Look, it's one of those areas, as you said, it somewhat has evolved. It's been something you've been anticipating but not necessarily knowing details. Now that there's more details, where does that put your mind in terms of, I don't know if confidence level is the right way to phrase it, but now knowing at least there's a little bit more of a roadmap than what there was a year ago at this time?
Yeah, 100% more of a roadmap. At this time last year, we were anticipating. We kept saying we think we're going to be able to pay directly from the institutions, but we didn't know. And now we're at that point. So we'll pivot, and I'm working with the foundation to try to figure out a best plan and really looking at a new kind of unique structure for us to allow us to do our revenue share as seamless and simple as possible. So I feel pretty good about that sense. The bigger challenge is going to be, hey, look, just because we're going to commit some of our generated revenues for revenue share, I still need that for my budget. So, as any person who manages a budget can tell you, there's only two ways to fix it: either increase your revenue or cut expenses. And, we're trying to do a little bit of both.
Having alignment and leadership is something that everybody knows is important regardless of the times. I feel like now it's even more important to have that alignment with athletics and, of course, the university. What have those conversations been like for our fans, for them to know of your communication level, obviously with Chancellor Lane, Matt Kupek, everybody at the foundation, of being in lockstep and moving as one in the same direction during this time period?
Yeah, I mean, the Chancellor's been great. He's obviously very engaged in it. Very engaged in the meetings in the Valley with the other CEOs of the universities. So he's got a pretty good feel for what direction needs to be, where we need to be heading, and for what expenses that we need to put in there. And obviously there's a cap from the NCAA that says, basically we can share up to $21 million. Well, that would be our entire athletics budget. So we're obviously not going to do that. So our plans are much different than, say, an SEC school who's going $21 million. I got a football roster that's going to be $30 to $35 million. So I got to come up with all this extra money, and how do I pay it outside of what the cap is, which is so crazy when you think about it, because I just have a bad feeling that at the top of the pyramid, they're going to go right back to under the table payments, because they want to be able to pay more than anybody else. Nobody can live within their means. That's part of the challenges here. But in our sense, the chancellor has been on board. We've talked about it. He knows what we're spending and where, and what I would like for our future plans to be. And obviously we're going to have to really get aggressive on generating revenue, and so we can have more to share.
There have been a lot of conversations publicly, and so many people have asked me this question, which I'm sure many have asked you, of, hey, I hear opt-in, opt-out. What does that really mean? To kind of educate our fans the best way possible, kind of take them through of you as a campus leader, being the leader of a athletic department. What do those options mean, and what do you see as the difference in them, and how have you tried to set SIU up for success of what is the best option for Southern Illinois?
So I guess the simplest way how I look at it is if you opt in, there's two main components to that, right? That means you're going to engage in revenue sharing with your student athletes. And when I say your student athletes, right, we get to choose how much and where. Obviously, at SIU, we're not going to be doing a broad-based revenue share. We just don't have those kind of resources, nor does anybody in the Missouri Valley Conference. So as you can imagine, the vast majority of us are going to put whatever revenue we can towards basketball because that's our most valuable sport at this level. But the other part of opting in, so now we can share revenue and we can share it directly with those kids. We don't have to do the whole collective, quote, NIL deals and all the rest of that. Having said that, we'll still have some student athletes that will have some legitimate and true name, image, and likeness deals where there'll be a spokesperson, a representative, something for some local businesses that they can earn. The other part of the opting in means that then we agree with the new format for roster size. And so they're making a big shift in this house settlement that goes from, we used to have scholarship limitations, but you could have as many people as you want on the roster, but you can only issue so many scholarships. Well, now they're saying just the opposite. We're going to put a cap on rosters, but you can offer as many scholarships as you want within that roster limit. So for us to opt in, that means we're going to agree to having roster limits and no scholarship limits. If you opt out, there are some schools that, they're in a different position. I look at some of these small privates that may have non-scholarship football, but they may have like 150 guys on their roster, and they're doing that for, enrollment. And they don't want to drop down to 105 people on their roster. So they're not going to opt in. That would be the only reason that I can see why you would not want to opt in. Because the payment situation now will be, if you're paying, and not all universities are, but if you are, it makes life a lot easier. At least I think it does. But then trying to play this little game and get people to put money in the collective as opposed to the university. And the other part of that is, too, now they're going to really, truly review those quote-unquote name, image, likeness deals, which we all know most of those that were being paid out of collectives were not name, image, likeness. It was just flat-out pay for play. And, I mean, that's what it was, and we all knew it, and it was just what we had to do to survive. But now if anything runs through a collective, it has to be a true name, image, likeness deal that will be audited and so forth.
Not to get so sidetracked, but I thought Seth Davis had a really good article that came out this week talking about how players in this current environment are getting paid and how that's really going to evolve now with this new settlement in the House. And one of the areas that he really dove into and what a lot of university leaders are talking about, Tim, is, look, in the NFL and the NBA, if you try to circumvent their payment models or try to circumvent the salary cap, there are serious consequences. You just brought up not too long ago of there is a concern level that you have that this is going to open some under-table payment at the highest of all levels. Where is your confidence level in terms of there are going to be some serious consequences? Because is that where we have to get to try to make it? I know everyone says equal playing field. I don't know if there can ever be such as an equal playing field with the powers of the sport, but they just say, hey, if that happens and if you get caught, there has to be serious ramifications.
Yes, and I don't have a great deal of confidence that we'll be able to get everybody on the same page and not everybody looking to cheat. I mean, cheating has been around in college athletics since the beginning of college athletics. That's why they formed the NCAA. It was one of the two main reasons. And yet, here we are. We're still dealing with those issues. So we change it to say, well, okay, we know half those programs maybe a lot more than half at those highest levels were paying guys underneath the table. So let's just make it open and let's start paying it open. So now we come to that, and what are we doing? It's still not enough, right? So now everybody's trying to figure out ways to game the system. And it's just, it's frustrating. You know, I've always been one of these people that just said, look, the rules are the rules. You follow the rules. And if you don't like the rules, change the rules. But until the rules change, you follow the rules. I mean, it is so hard to live by that mantra anymore, right? Because there's rules and people just like, we don't follow rules. We just do whatever it takes to win. And, you know, that's why we're in this position, right? And I don't have great confidence that we'll figure it out because these are the people that we've said they want to be in charge. They need to lead this process. Only people from the Power Four conferences are smart enough to figure this out. But yet it's only people from those conferences that are doing the vast majority of the cheating and will do the vast majority of the cheating moving forward. I personally just don't think that's the best. We don't need that group leading this because they've already led us down a path that is not great and at the mercy of outside influences because of the money that those outside influences are putting in and then doing whatever it takes to make sure they get all the money. And, it's just it's a really not pretty, you know, it's the old sausage factory. If people saw how they make the sausage, they probably wouldn't eat it. And that's kind of how I feel about some of those things, particularly at the highest level.
And that's part of this figuring out process of what exactly it will look like. I know you talked about the NIL Go and some of this setup that's going through. And obviously I know Massey and Kristen internally has been a huge help in just trying to navigate you guys as a athletic department leadership of what do we need to be ready for, because it's going to be a little bit of uncharted territory where, as you described, now at Deloitte, who's kind of taken over that oversight, the NCAA has sort of lost that oversight, at least of what it's been in the past.
I guess. Yeah, I don't know if I would say they've lost that. I maybe that's the right terminology. I know that they've agreed to that we need to have a group that's qualified to audit, and that they will hire that, and then they'll support that group. I'm hoping that will be something that works, right? And that we have some confidence in Deloitte and Touche. To do a very thorough, fair, objective evaluation. We'll see.
Yeah, that's the uncharted territory that we are in. As a Saluki fan, for talking to them, which is obviously what we're doing right now, what would you tell them as, hey, me as your athletic director, as the leader, this is where you need to be confident and optimistic about where we're going? And that, as you said, there's still putting this plan together and trying to figure out exactly how it all will come together. But what's your level of just, hey, we're going to get through this. We know the roadmap now. It's time now to figure it out to avoid those potholes and see where SIU athletics can be successful.
Yeah, I would say, the one thing that I'm really been focused on is trying to prioritize the sports that have the ability to generate us the most money. And that's probably a little bit of a different mindset than where we've been. And it's not necessarily one that I like to be in, but, financial constraints are so real for us, and more real for us at this point in time in the history of the university. So at some point in time, we've got to get so focused on winning in some of those programs, particularly those that now we're going to start revenue sharing with the athletes, the student athletes, then we've got to start winning in those because that's what will generate the most amount of money. And then the more we have, the more then we can spread that wealth throughout the department. So that's something that we're really trying to focus on, even more than what we've done in the past. I mean, everybody tries to do that to a degree.
Yeah.
But we're doing that, and there's parts of that I don't really like because you're taking some of those resources that we could be spreading around to everybody, so that everybody has a chance to be successful and to compete. and we're having to adapt a little bit because we need to generate more money than we've ever generated before. And the only way that I know how to do that is to win, and it starts with basketball. Right? They have to win and win at a high level, and I'm not as concerned about that. I'm pretty confident that Scott Nagy's going to get us back to where we want to be. But my biggest concern is once we get there, do we have the proper infrastructure in place to maximize that success? Right, because we're going to have to really figure out how to monetize it, and that really concerns me more than the winning does, because I think the winning's going to happen. But I don't want to just get to the point where we're doing, time and a half our existing revenue, or even 2x our revenue. I mean, we got to get it to where we're 3 or 4x what we're currently doing, and that's going to be really difficult.
I don't want to say it. This has changed the focus of how a Saluki fan can support the future efforts. But as you described, winning no doubt will be a big part of it. And everyone has figured out, or I should say just figured out, everyone knows around here when the Salukis win, Saluki Nation comes out and supports in full force.
Yeah.
And the arena just down the hall will go and is always one of the great environments in our league. It will be the best environment when the Salukis win and that place is packed. But there's really no better time right now than if you are a Saluki fan and you start seeing SIU have that success that we all hope is coming this fall. The best way to support this new model is to come out to Saluki Stadium, Banterra Center, to help in that rev share model, right? The best way is to really buy tickets and support SIU in that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a big part of this community, and it's not just from an entertainment standpoint. But when this place is full and when this place is rocking, the economic impact it makes for the region is fairly substantial, right? Bars and restaurants are full, pregame, postgame. That's part of the beauty of where we're at, because people are coming from all these small towns, and even down from Chicago. They're coming down for the weekends for games. So they're spending money. This isn't like they're just driving 5 minutes and pulling out of their garage, driving to the arena and pulling right back. Right? They're coming from 20 miles away, 30 miles away, some of them, 200 miles away. So they're going to spend money in the region when they're here, and I just think that that's important for everybody to understand that, look, we all need to do our part, and it doesn't have to be that you got to be our biggest donor. We just need you to go to the games. Right? Plain and simple. Go to the games. That's what we need, and we need you to watch the games. And then when you're at the games, buy a hot dog, buy a soft drink, buy a T-shirt. All those things help, and we've got to really ignite our fan base to not only go to the games, but to help promote us and get their friends and families to come, because once this place is full, it just makes such an impact on everybody in the southern part of the state.
We'll wrap it up on this note, Tim. I really appreciate your time. I know there's probably going to be more interviews that we're going to do in terms of breaking down with news to come. I know those first payments can come in the month of July, and there's kind of this anticipation that there are going to be more lawsuits that are going to come, and this
100%.
could be completely far from over. What does your gut say right now in what is next in terms of the obstacles that our staff and everybody's going to have to overcome once July 1 hits and some of this new legalities, however you want to word it, start coming in to the forefront?
Well, I think the biggest thing that we're all going to have to adapt to or figure out or learn is the application of Title IX to the revenue sharing portion. The Judge Wilkin made that very clear that she was not addressing that. It was never about that in this lawsuit, so she wasn't going to rule on that. That was not, as she stated, it really wasn't her place, because that wasn't part of the case. And we all knew that, boy, as soon as this comes out, it's going to happen. And sure enough, 2 days later, we've already had the first, lawsuit filed, and I think we'll have several more trying to get a ruling on how Title IX applies to the revenue share portion. So I think that'll be the first big challenge to the whole house settlement agreement?
Well, it's going to be some uncharted territory, but we, as you have described, I think everybody here has that feeling of, look, well, got to adapt. It's
adapt and overcome.
You got to adapt and overcome and figure out ways, because you have the confidence level and those that are around your sports right now. Hey, Jin Sewell's going to figure it out. Scott Nagy's going to figure it out. Nick Hill, they're going to figure it out. They're going to find ways to continue to win, not just finding ways to support them.
Yes, 100%. Like you say, the best, easiest way to do it for everybody, and it's hopefully an enjoyable way, is come to the games. Right?
Yes.
Just come to the games. Enjoy the games and have a good time, and that will help as much as anything.
Do you get much time on that lawnmower this summer? Or
Yeah, I'm finding it. Once I bought that, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm having a lot of fun with that.
No doubt. I know you've had plenty of meetings. You've been traveling, going here and there, but it's always important to get that little bit of downtime, or at least unplug for a little bit. At least a few hours.
Yeah.
Maybe not days, but at least a few hours.
Chainsaw and a lawn tractor. I mean, what more do you need to have fun?
Tim, appreciate the time. I know, like you said, this is uncharted territory for everybody. I know our fans appreciate at least some knowledge base, and there will definitely be more of these conversations to come. Thanks so much for the time.
You bet. Happy to do it.